Amara had always been the quiet observer, the girl who noticed everything and said very little. Raised in a small town above her mother's cozy bookshop, she grew up surrounded by stories and silences. Her father, the school teacher, with a gentle demeanor, rarely raised his voice, but also rarely voiced affection. Love in her childhood home was subtle and restrained. A sandwich wrapped and waiting on the counter, a porch light left on, a knowing glance across the dinner table. It was care without language, affection without touch. In school, Amara was quiet, observant, and kind. Teachers adored her. She was reliable, helpful, and always careful not to stir waves. Friends liked her but never truly knew her. She filled in the blanks with books. In novels, love was vivid and loud. Lovers chased each other through airports, fought for each other in rainstorms, made grand declarations under moonlight. She learned to keep the deepest parts of herself hidden. Her insecurities, her wild romantic hopes, her longing to be chosen fully and loudly by someone. By her late 20s, Amara had moved to the city, built a small, peaceful life. She worked as a freelance graphic designer and also an artist, a creative, reliable with an eye for calm aesthetic. Her apartment was modest but filled with life. Succulents on every windowsill, art supplies spilling from drawers, and books organized by emotion rather than genre. Her favorite corner was a reading nook she built herself, with cushions stitched from her mother's old fabric scraps. She dated now and then, but none of the relationship lasted. One man called her a little too serious. Another, after 3 months, left a note saying she was a lovely soul, but too much in her head. Each failed attempt left a quiet echo inside her. Maybe love, the kind she read about, wasn't real for people like her. Then she met Daniel. They met at a friend's wedding. Amara had nearly skipped the event. Crowds made her anxious, and weddings often left her feeling hollow in ways she couldn't quite explain. But Layla, her best friend since college, had insisted, "You need to be reminded that good love exists," she said, "even if it's not your turn yet." Daniel was the best man, tall, magnetic, and effortlessly charming. He had a laugh that drew people in and eyes that lingered a second longer than necessary. He found Amara near the bar, sipping sparkling water and avoiding the dance floor. "You don't like weddings?" he asked. "I like them in theory," she replied. "In practice, they make me miss people I haven't met yet." That made him pause, then smile. "That's the most honest thing I've heard all night," he said. They talked for hours that evening. He asked thoughtful questions, listened intently, and did not interrupt once. When he learned she was a graphic designer, he immediately asked her what colors she gravitated towards and what emotions she thought each shade carried. "People always talk about their jobs," he said, "but not the soul behind them." Amara was stunned. Most men she had met either talked about themselves or asked surface level questions, but Daniel felt like a deep breath after a long day. He didn't just see her, he seemed to study her, like a story he wanted to memorize. They went on their first date the next weekend, then another and another. He was consistent, attentive, texted her good morning and good night every day, even surprised her with tickets to her favorite art exhibit, learned her coffee order, listened to her stories about her childhood without looking bored. When she told him about an ex who blamed her for his cheating, Daniel leaned forward and said, "What an idiot. You deserve someone who protects your heart, not plays with it." Amara didn't want to rush, but for once she felt safe leaning in. Still, there were moments she brushed off, like when she asked about his last relationship, he rolled his eyes. "She was crazy," he said, "jealous and irrational. You're not like her, you are more balanced." The word felt like praise. Amara, so often told she was too sensitive, was now being rewarded for her stability. She ignored the slight tremor in her gut. After all, hadn't she been labeled difficult once too? She also noticed how quickly he wanted to define things. "I've never met anyone like you," he said a week in. By the end of the first month, he was calling her the one. When she hesitated to move in after only 4 months of dating, he framed it as fear. "You've been hurt, I get it, but I'm not like them." When he proposed after just under a year, it felt like something out of the novels she once loved. Intense, poetic, sweeping. He knelt in her art studio amid the smell of paint and the hum of a Nina Simone record and said, "Let me build a life with you." She said yes. It didn't feel rushed. It felt like being chosen. The first few months of marriage were one blur. Amara settled into the rhythm of a shared space. The way Daniel always made coffee first, how he liked his shirts folded just so, how he kissed her forehead every time he passed her on the way to the kitchen. He insisted on pancakes on Sundays and left post-it notes on the bathroom mirror that said things like, "Still the most beautiful thing in every room." They took walks in the evening, held hands in public, and hosted cozy dinner with friends who gushed about how perfect they were together. Amara smiled, accepting the praise like an award she had long awaited. When she found out she was pregnant, Daniel cried. He picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, declaring it the best day of his life. They painted the nursery together in sage green. He read parenting books aloud while resting his hand over her belly, promising he would be the kind of father he never had. But something very soon began to shift. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. When Amara questioned one of his ideas, he would say, "You're overthinking again." When she asked if he could help with the dishes, he would respond, "I've had a long day. Can't you just handle it?" Then came the way he started critiquing how she dressed. "You used to put effort in," he said once, when she wore an oversized cardigan while pregnant. When she also mentioned wanting to work on a freelance project again, he tilted his head. "Don't you think you should focus on being a mom now? You have the luxury to." Each moment chipped away at her, but he always followed them with something kind, a small gift, an apology, a kiss on her shoulder. "I didn't mean it like that," he would say. "You are just being sensitive today." By the time their daughter Sela was born, Amara's world had narrowed to the walls of their home. She loved her baby fiercely, but the days began to blur. Nursing, cleaning, quiet weeping in the bathroom after Daniel had left for work. She had never felt so alone while sharing space with someone. Daniel grew colder during the baby's first year, less patient, more critical. "You're smothering her," he would say when Amara held Sela for too long. "She needs to learn independence." When Amara cried from exhaustion, he called her dramatic. "My mother raised 3 kids with no help. You can't even handle one?" The worst part was how easily he returned to sweetness after, bringing home her favorite pastries, kissing her cheek in front of her friends, telling people how amazing she was. And she was amazing, tired and heartbroken, and still giving everything she had. She learned to cope by minimizing, rationalizing. She told herself he was stressed, that it would pass, that all marriages had hard seasons according to her mom. But the little girl inside her, the one who used to dream of sweeping love, began to cry quietly in her sleep. One evening, after putting Sheila to bed, Amara sat on the bathroom floor and whispered to herself, "I miss me." Amara didn't bother to leave in a storm. She left in silence. It started with small steps, Googling women's shelters, reading articles about emotional abuse, checking library books on codependency under a pseudonym account. She wasn't sure if she was allowed to use that word, abuse. There were no bruises, no screaming, no slammed doors, but the quiet erosion of her spirit was undeniable. Layla, her friend, noticed first. "You are fading," she said one afternoon over tea. "You smile less. Your eyes don't light up when you talk about Sheila, what's going on?" Amara hesitated. Then tears filled her eyes before words could. I don't know who I am anymore. Layla didn't try to fix it. She reached across the table and held Amara's hand and said, "Then we will find her again." The support group met on Wednesday night in a modest community center room that smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old carpet. Amara sat in a circle of women, some older, some younger, all carrying stories stitched with grief and resilience. She didn't speak the first night or the second, but the third, after a woman named Mina shared how her ex isolated her from her family. Amara's voice cracked through the silence. "That happened to me too," she whispered. The group turned toward her, no one interrupting, no one rushing her. She spoke haltingly about how Daniel had once made her feel like the center of the universe, only to later accuse her of being ungrateful, needy, and weak. "I started to believe him," she said. "I thought I was the problem." Another woman nodded. "That's how they win, but they are wrong. You're not crazy, you're just waking up." Amara cried that night, not out of pain, but recognition. It was the first time she had said the truth out loud and not been met with doubt. That week, she started therapy. Her therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Claire, didn't rush her. Instead, she gently helped Amara unravel the patterns. How her father's quietness had taught her to equate silence with love. How being the low-maintenance girl had made her a magnet for emotionally unavailable partners. How she had mistaken control for protection. "You don't have to earn love by shrinking," Claire once said. "You deserve to take up space." Amara began painting again, walking barefoot in a garden with Sheila and teaching her to name flowers. She reconnected with an old client and started designing again in the early hours before her daughter woke. She left Daniel on a Tuesday morning. He was away for work. She packed only what she needed and left a note saying she and Sheila were safe and that she was done. He called, he texted, he begged. But this time she didn't respond. She and Sheila had moved into a small rental, 2 rooms, 1 floor, and a window that caught the morning sun perfectly. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. And each morning Amara whispered into the mirror, "You're not lost, you're coming home." It took months before Daniel finally showed up. Amara was picking Sheila up from preschool when she saw him leaning against his car. His posture casual, his smile familiar, too familiar. "I miss you," he said softly. "You look tired." Amara didn't flinch. She adjusted Sheila's backpack on her shoulder and met his gaze calmly. "Parenting is tiring, but I'm good." Daniel's smile faltered for a half second before he continued. "Can we talk, just for a minute? I've been doing some thinking." She nodded, only because she needed to hear it to confirm what she already knew. They sat at a nearby park bench within eyesight of her daughter, who ran in loops around a tree. Daniel's voice softened into that old practice tone, the tone he used when they were dating. "I've realized a lot. I pushed you away. I didn't know how to handle being a dad or a husband. I took you for granted." She didn't say anything. "I'm getting therapy now," he said. "We could start afresh, for Sheila, for us." There was a time when those words might have hooked her, when the idea of a changed Daniel would have made her heart flutter. But not anymore. "Do you remember," she asked, "how you said your ex was crazy?" He blinked. "What?" "You told me she was irrational, emotional, that you were the same one, and I believed you. Then you said the same about me. Gaslighting doesn't look like rage, Daniel. It looks like that." He opened his mouth, but Amara raised a hand. "I'm not here to rehash. I just needed to hear you say it so I could be sure." He looked lost for a moment, then frustrated. "You're being so stubborn." Amara stood. "I'm not being stubborn. I'm being free." She took Sheila's hand and walked away. That night at our support group, Amara shared what had happened. "I saw the cycle clearly," she said. Not just with Daniel, but before him too. I always picked men who needed me to feel small so they could feel big. The group listened quietly. But I'm done shrinking, she said. For me, for my daughter. One woman clapped. Another whispered, "You are fire now." In the following months, Amara continued therapy. She worked on rebuilding trust in herself and designed a new art series titled Unfolding. It featured abstract portraits of women in various stages of rising. Some curled tight, some breaking open, others dancing with light. She sold every single piece. Sheila grew into a bright, curious child who adored painting beside her mother and asked deep questions like, "Can the moon cry?" Amara answered them all, everyone, truthfully, gently, and bravely. On the anniversary of the day she left Daniel, she and Layla drank tea under the stars. "You are not just better," Layla said, holding her hand. "You are more you than ever." Amara smiled. "I didn't just survive him. I survived the girl who thought she needed him. And that, she knew, was the real story. Not the love that broke her, but the self that was rebuilt."